Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I am sometimes surprised by the number of Zimbabweans who um, keep talking about Zanu PF as if to say that is our only problem. Zanu PF is a problem. Totally agree with that. But when we are talking of 44 years of Zanu PF rigging the elections, one has got to ask, why is it that we have failed to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections? I believe that debate was held by the late 1990s. The people of Zimbabwe had made a conscious decision that we must implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And so the question now is, after nearly 23 years now, of at least the MDC, why is it that Zanu PF is still able to rig the elections? Zanu PF blatantly rigged last year's elections. And thanks to the participation of the people, got away with it. So the debate should not be so much about Zanu PF rigging the elections, but that why have we failed to stop them? So I would like you to listen to this video that has been taking the rounds in my social media. I'll just play a section of it.
Story, PF. That's when he died. Now he has Zaramatsotsi, opportunist in Zap who just given money to Anyarare. Imbwa dzezano vanachivhaya vakuswera kuti hanzi vanamukanya uyai muchizano pamberi nezano tokupai vanajawa ngochanidze kuamerica kweimbwa izo. People who lie about the fucking white Jesus munyika medu munoera. Muri kuti chiko, muri kutaura kuti chiko mani mimi. Votaura hanzi kuti vapei mukana, mukana upi? Mukana upi wavanopiwa mukana wavanofanira kudhiserva kupiwa nawo.
There we have it. Benjamin, what's your take on this one?
Hi, good day to you, to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. I managed to listen to the whole thing, and I think this is a very, very unhappy G40, because on one element is saying that Zanu PF died with Mugabe and Stole and Nkomo. Now Zanu PF, is full of thieves. Come on, Zanu PF was always full of thieves. So from that angle, I think that's where I draw my conclusion to say, I think he missed the gravy train somewhere, and now he is fed up with it. But I mean, we know that Zanu PF is corrupt and has always been corrupt from day one, ever since they took over from independence. So from that angle, I would not disagree with him. And now it has gone to an extent of like what he's saying is having Zanu PF youngsters coming up in the mix there to do all sorts of things, giving away cars and all that. Is controversial. But I mean, yeah, I would agree with him to say Zanu PF is corrupt, but it's not corrupt because of this new, what they call the Second Republic. Zanu PF has always been corrupt from day one. Ever since they took office, everything has been under the table.
Yeah, I think on that point I agree with you. I think in this particular case, I've heard the same gentleman. I know he is an ardent opposition supporter. So it's not so much that he wants to condemn the Second Republic, as if to say Zanu PF under Robert Mugabe was doing fine. But even if we accept that, I think that is the material point here is that the majority of people in Zimbabwe have accepted that Zanu PF is corrupt and cannot be reformed and will never reform itself. And that decision was made, as far as I'm concerned, by the late 1990s when MDC was formed. And therefore then, one has got to look at why is it that in the last 23 years, MDC has failed to stop Zanu PF rigging elections? And I think that is the question that one has got to ask. And in this particular case, why people like him are fuming and frothing around the mouth about Zanu PF. We already know that Zanu PF is corrupt. We already know Zanu PF is incompetent. And we already know that Zanu PF is a part of thugs. Why is it that we have failed to stop the regime? That is the question that I think one has got to ask in this case here, Benjamin.
When you say, why is it that MDC, or now most recent Triple C, and now we don't have anything, is, the question is, why have they failed? I don't think they failed because they've never tried. What they are doing is just playing, double agent. As let's go back to the formation of MDC. The real name was the Movement for Democratic Change, and as the name implies, they were supposed to bring about change, democracy, for that matter, and not change of government. This is where people made a mistake. They thought that MDC was supposed to be the next solution, the next government. That was not the original idea. That later came out, but the most and the fundamental purpose why MDC was to implement democratic reforms, such that we could have.
So why have they failed, Benjamin? I think you need to address that.
They have never tried. They have never done anything for democracy. Look at it this way. They have spoken about reforms, to say, we need to reform such that, we get a free and fair political environment, such that, we can have free and fair, credible elections. They have never called for that. Yes, they have said it, but they have never really called for. Their main objective, for me, is the call that we are going to win elections. This time we are going to beat Zanu PF, and trying to beat Zanu PF at their game. And we know that is not going to happen. So for us to now say they have failed, I don't think they failed because they haven't tried. I don't think the only time
why haven't they tried? I think we can't.
Agreed. They want they want the power that comes with the whole government idea. Once they came up to to change their main objective, which was for the democratic change, they changed, and they wanted to be part and parcel of the new government that would bring prosperity. And by them changing, straight away they looked at what they could benefit from achieving, that the presidency. Hence you find, to prove my point right, hence you find they're not worried about whatever else is happening. They'll tell you that, their leaders won. They won the elections. They do not dispute any other thing, but they won the election. So, which means their main objective is not anything to do about, reforms, democracy. Is about them winning.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, what the people of Zimbabwe must appreciate here is that they themselves, the ordinary people, did not understand when they said in the late 1990s we wanted democratic change. They never bothered to find out for themselves what that entailed. And as for the opposition, I agree with you that they really didn't try. But to be quite honest, I would put it slightly differently. I would say most of the opposition leaders, the likes of Morgan Changirai, Nelson Chamisa, if you ask them about what are the reforms, none of them have ever articulated even one reform. Most of them have no clue what you're talking about. They think they can get into power. And in this particular case, when they got into power during the GNU, they were content with that. And so it was easy for Mugabe to bribe them and make them forget about the reforms. And this has always been the case with even Zanu PF. Zanu PF members, when after independence, Mugabe was able to bribe them with the same things, the same ministerial limousines and generous salaries and so forth, so that they forgot all about meaningful reforms, and hence we are where we are today. So for the Zanu PF thugs themselves, when they got into power, even when Mugabe was carrying out the Kukura Wundi, they would not rock the boat. They would not ask Mugabe what is happening here. We can't do this, because they were on the gravy train and they didn't care about anything else, and the mismanagement and so forth. So that has been carried through to the opposition. But I think what I wanted to emphasize here also is the gentleman here was fuming and frothing about Zanu PF. The truth of the matter is we should be concentrating on why is the opposition, why have they failed to implement even one meaningful reform? After 23 years, 5 of which were in the GNU, when they had the golden opportunity to do so. Because until you address that point, they are not going to address the problem of you need a competent opposition to implement the reforms. Zanu PF is not going to reform itself out of government. That is a fact. And if the opposition, after 23 years, including 5 in the GNU, have failed to implement even one token reform, indeed, ever since the GNU, the opposition have been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. And so we are perpetuating the problem ourselves by participating in a flawed process, because Chamisa promised that CCC would win big because he has plugged all the vote rigging loopholes and so forth. I think that is the failing that a society, the Zimbabwe society has. And I think that is one problem that must be addressed.
Yes, I agree with you. And just to try and highlight my point a little further, and to also, I think I will touch also on when you said that, the people do not understand what the, democratic change is all about. I think this is evident when Mugabe was ousted. A lot of people were very happy because there was change, but that is not democratic change. It was just replacing presidents, one to another, and we can still do that there even with so many. But the fundamental thing that needs to be fixed in Zimbabwe is the democratic space, the environment, the political, economic, and all social environment needs to be flat leveled, such that when you want to go and cast your ballot, it has meaning. And once it has meaning, it brings about the change. Not the change in presidency, but the true change of the will, and it reflects the will of the people.
PF. That's when he died.
I think that is what we really need to understand and to focus on, not to be changed. To say Mnangagwa has failed, we are going to change and we're going to put this one, or we can do another. We can do so many coups, have so many coups, 10, 15 of them. But as long as the political and social environment in Zimbabwe is as toxic as it is, there is no meaningful change that will come out. And when I say no meaningful change, I mean your vote does not count. The will of the people is not heard. I think that needs also to be said.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. And to the listeners, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we hope you'll be joining us again tomorrow. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Good night.